In short, we are the Jubane
Yes.
of the Basotho clan, partly joined to the Ndebele people on the southern part of this world.
Yes.
Wonderful. The languages I speak are as follows. My own language, which is Ndebele, and also Sotho,
Yes.
Lozi,
Yes.
Tonga,
Yes.
Bemba, Nyanja, and partly a bit of Luvale. All those are on my head.
Yes.
You can ask me any question in any of those, I will answer. My father was a polygamist, I repeat. He was a husband of 4.
4.
Yes. And he never divorced them.
Okay.
They were divorced by the following reason: by death, nothing else. To be very honest,
Yes.
I've been married twice. This is a true history of mine.
Okay.
And I've never married a true Zimbabwean.
Greetings, people of Victoria Falls. Welcome back to Vic Falls Televivi, a television that shares the stories and experiences of people who have made the community of Victoria Falls vibrant. And today we are joined by one of the true pillars who has seen Victoria Falls become one of the great places, who has a huge history to share with us today. And I'm here with Ubaba Africa Jubane. Salibonani Baba linjani?
Salibonani mtanam. Uyaphila.
Hayi ngiyaphila linjani?
Asibusiso somani.
Yeah, I see a boy. And this man, with the wealth of knowledge that he has gained in decades of service, he's going to share with us today, because his history is the history of people, and we all want to know that history as the people of Victoria Falls. So I think we're just going to start with a little bit of background. Ukuthi ubaba yena ongubani, uzalwa ngaphi nini?
Nxa usithi ubaba utsho owami ubaba owami ubaba.
Nithi lina baba.
Mina ngazalelwa ko Bulawayo mntanami. I-district yami, district of birth Bulawayo, district of rural living Mzingwane, which was called Essexville. Now it is known as Escotine. Yes. Why it is Escotine? Well, when you go down into that small town, it's right on a very big slope from along with the Gwanda Road.
All right. Can you just tell us a little bit about your genealogy? Kuvela kukhulu kusiya kubaba ukuthi bongabantu abavela ngaphi. And I think kule bizwe eli continueyo like elivela kukhulu lisiya kubaba la buya kili futhi. Can you just tell us a little bit about your genealogy?
In short, we are the Jubane.
Yes.
Of the Basotho clan, partly joined to the Ndebele people on the southern part of this world.
Yes.
And then my grandfather moved as a wagon driver or escorter with the fighters of the time. Yes. On a Scotch cart which had 4 wheels being towed by 16 oxen. That is the history I've been told.
Yes.
It's a history that I can talk much about,
yes.
But I know that is how my grandfather came up north from the southern part of Africa,
okay.
Which was South Africa.
All right. So as we're still on your background, I have noticed that you are a well-educated man. So can you tell us a little bit about your education growing up and when you were growing up back then, and the languages that you speak?
Wonderful. The languages I speak are as follows. My own language, which is Ndebele.
Yes.
And also Sotho.
Yes.
Lozi.
Yes.
Tonga.
Yes.
Bemba. Nyanja.
7.
And partly a bit of Luvale. All those are on my head.
Yes.
You can ask me any question in any of those, I will answer. Wow. Now coming to my education.
Yes.
I started my sub-A at a school called Mahumcha. Mahumcha School was under Escotini district, which at the time was known as Essexville.
Yes.
But now it is known as Escotini.
Yes.
Or one of the popular name is Mzingwane district. This is where my original home was, my original home of living.
Yes.
But being born in the capital city of Bulawayo in 1943.
Yes.
From the two, which was my mother, Annie, and my father, Majoni.
Yes.
And then, as we lived, as I started growing up, I even lived in the area of Nyamendlovu area at a farming area called Bingham Farm, which I still visit up to now, because I have relatives there now.
Yes.
Now, at that farm lived my own father's sister, who was Mangose.
Yes.
Mangose was a lot older than my father. It is this Mangose who gave us most of the family history, which I might be giving you now.
Okay.
Who said my father was never born in 1901. He was born much earlier, during the wars. And our grandfather was actually traveling with the so-called soldiers who were known as Amajoni. At that particular time,
Yes.
in the 1890s, people regarded the police and the soldiers as Amajoni. They could not differentiate them. So my father was born during those years. Not in 1901, much earlier 1901. Between 1886 and 1898, that's when my father was born.
Yes.
And then he was named Majoni because his own father was actually traveling with the soldiers as a Scotch cattle driver,
yes,
or escorter from the south. And my father got a name Majoni from her parents, which I don't know. I only knew my father, but I've never seen my grandfather.
Yes.
I've never seen my grandmother. No. I only saw grandmother from the mother's side, not
Yes.
from my father's side.
Okay. As your parents lived way back, how many wives did your father have?
My father was a polygamist, I repeat. He was a husband of 4.
4.
Yes. And he never divorced them.
Okay.
They were divorced by the following reason: by death, nothing else. My mother lies in Zambia in a district of Choma, where my mother died in 1956 at a place called Pemba West, Kwamubwende, where I learned the Tonga even before going to school.
Yes.
Because that was Batonga area. That's where my mother is lying now. And that was 1956.
Okay.
And my mother died on the first week of January, when my firstborn brother was going to start teaching at Mapaneni at a school called Dry Paddock School.
Yes.
And 3 days when my father had when my brother had left for Mapaneni Dry Paddock School to start his teaching as a teacher, my mother died.
All right.
And I remember my father saying, I will not call Isaiah back. He will only be able to come to and mourn the mother when chances allow him. That was 1956.
Yes.
It was a bitter year for us in that part of the country because the entire family of Vic Jubane was attacked by malaria. More than 6 of us were very sick. But I can still remember a Roman Capuchin father from Garcia Mission in that year, who was practicing as a doctor or as a magician,
Yes.
told my father, your children will survive, but your wife will not. I still remember that?
Yes.
1956. Your children who are sick will survive from malaria, but your wife no.
Yes.
And for sure, my mother died that year.
All right.
So since 1956 to date, I have no mother living. I've been brought up by my step-parents, who were so good, who were so nice, who even sent me to school and gave me the type of education that I needed.
Okay.
This was a stepmother.
Yes.
I wish all stepmothers behave like my own stepmothers.
Hi, so before we dig deep into much history, we still want to talk about your own personal background, your work experience, your religion, and your marital status, leading to your children, and all that.
You're very nice. To be very honest,
Yes.
I've been married twice. This is a true history of mine.
Okay.
And I've never married a true Zimbabwean
Okay.
because my early growing age was in Northern Rhodesia, which is Zambia now.
All right.
My first wife was a Bemba woman from Kasama
Yes.
because I lived there. And God gave me some children. One of my children died in this town. When I left for this country, that woman, we had differed.
Yes.
She was not interested to come to Zimbabwe. She said, no, Zimbabwe is yours. I'm not going. Then I said, bye-bye. It was probably 6 years before our Zimbabwe independence
Yes.
when I said to her, if you will not come with me to Zimbabwe, then let us separate.
Yes.
Then I married my Tonga woman, who is 6 months dead as we are talking today, from here. And she died from where the two are seated. My wife dropped there and died. And that was my Tonga woman,
All right.
who lived with me so well. She was also a very good political participator. She served the ruling party from the district up to the provincial level. That was Rachel Machila Jubane. It's on record. Because she even toured Zimbabwe much more than me on the political field.
Wow.
That was my wife, Rachel Machila Jubane, a true Tonga from Choma West, under Chief Mapanza.
Yes. And your children, how many do you have?
Well, thanks. Right now, as I'm living, I've lost 2 of my own children. The 2 are both boys.
Yes.
Right now, I have 2 boys living, as I'm talking now, 2 boys living, 2 girls living.
Yes.
And that, from what I'm mentioning now, will give you the total number of my living children.
Okay.
Both living and the dead.
All right. Thank you very much. That was a very strong background from Ubaba Uchurane. So now we want to get into the interesting history of Zimbabwe. You migrating to the northern, to the southern. Can you tell us how the Jubanes came to live in Victoria Falls?
What a wonderful thing. In the year 1950, from 1953, 1954, there was a havoc to Zimbabwean African
Yes.
concerning rural living. I'm sorry if your parents have never told you that living in Zimbabwe at that time was a bit bitter.
Yes.
Especially to those who were like my own parents, who wanted to grow at a rural level.
Yes.
Now there was a law which made a lot of division, that there was an area for blacks and an area for whites.
Yes.
At the same time, this law started dictating the keeping of cattle, where one, that is from 1953 if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
where one could not be allowed to have more than 6 cattle, because right in this house I still have the books about my father's cattle ownership, where he had only, all the cattle he had, he was forced to destroy them.
Yes.
What they meant by destroying, either you sell them or you do anything with them, but the number allowed was 6 cattle and 4 donkeys. I have a record in this house about them. Those were my father's
Yes.
properties. And because of that bitterness of the rural living,
Yes.
which my father did not like, my father decided to go elsewhere. He had a very good pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist Church life. That is a 1954 history towards the end. I was already grown up.
Yes.
And my father went missing for 2 months. We were wondering where Jubane has gone to. Only to see him appear in about 2.5 months. I'm from Zambezi. Nobody knew there was Northern Rhodesia. All the Africans called the other side of the river Zambezi. So our father appeared. He said, Banabang, I've been away to look for a place for us to live nicely, where we can do the farming and keep the cattle the way we want.
Yes.
Father, where was that? He said, Zambezi. He never told us it was Choma. All he told us is Zambezi. Why he was called Zambezi? Because it was across the river Zambezi.
Yes.
And then, early or mid June 1955, we left this country, entire family, with my father's 4 wives and with more than 10 children. My father booked a truck from Bulawayo up to Choma. It was called a family truck.
Okay.
Because he said, I don't want any interference.
Yes.
Then a truck was booked from Bulawayo for the Jubane family, which was moving from Escotini in southern Riga into northern Riga. So we left.
Yes.
Our own booked train, it was mentioned, leli coach leli namhlanje ngena abantu bakoJubane kuphela.
Okay.
Abaya eNorthern Riga.
Yes.
Because we did not want to interfere. So we were put there. We traveled almost 2 days. Bulawayo to Choma used to take exactly 2 days. Because you could start off in the evening, in the morning, you are in Victoria Falls here, it starts off again, the evening the following day, it gets to a place called Pemba. And there we descended off.
Yes.
We were there for about a week, waiting for a truck carrying our scotch cat and the other farming implements.
Okay.
That delayed us there.
Yes.
We were now in Pemba. But 6 or 7 days later, that truck arrived. And my father was called by a station master. My Johnny, come forward, there is something for you from Southern Rhodesia. Only to find that a truck for my father's goods were all there.
Yes.
While as us, as his children and his wives were being in Pemba. Well kept. My father was not a son of somebody. He was a man who had worked enough. And then we were there for almost about a week. And then we started off for a rural home,
Yes.
which is exactly 15 miles from Pemba, because I visited it even now. I do go there. It's exactly 15 miles from Pemba station via Garcia Mission, and then you end up at Makomba. That's where we settled there.
Yes.
But life became too bitter. 3 months on the line, there was always sickness. That was from June. Nearly after June, July, August, September, no, it became bitter
Yes.
up to the whole year. And then the following year, because we had time, my own mother, Annie, died.
Okay.
Yet the Roman Catholic Captain Father had already confirmed, my
Yes.
father, that most of your children, I see they will survive, but your wife, no. And that did happen. That was 1956 now.
Yes.
You see, it moved from 1955 up to 1956,
Yes.
and my mother died. The first week of January 1956, when my brother was 3 days gone to go and start teaching at a dry paddock at Mapane in Zimbabwe. So
Okay.
that's the most history that I have. I have that history.
All right.
I was grown up. I was doing my study too that time,
All right.
but I was too jacked up upstairs.
All right, thank you very much for that migration history. So can you tell us, how did you experience the transition from the colonial regime to the independent government?
The answer is very simple.
Yes.
My going to live outside Zimbabwe is not because I wanted.
Yes.
Because I and my father, as the grown-up children, were seeing the ill treatment that were being given by the colonialists then.
Yes.
For your own information, it was so bitter that somebody comes into your village and they start counting your own cattle that you have owned, and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Mzingwane. That will say you either kill them or sell them. This was happening here. Now you come to the field. My father with his 4 wives, each of them would have wanted her own field. But because of the Colonial Tenure Act, it was only my own mother was elder than all who were given the field. The rest were said they would depend on my mother's field, which is very un-African.
Yes.
Any married woman would not like to go through somebody. My other 3 aunties wanted to have their own field, but that was not happening. This is what annoyed my own father.
Yes.
He would say this word, what he meant by that
Yes.
is the white guys whom you could see the sun through their ears, they are not good. That's what my father would say. Ondlebe zikhanyilanga babi lobubi babo. The reason being we're being deprived of our own living standard.
Yes.
And so my father had this good pastor of the FTA at Tourist Mission who said, may I come across with you? And Jubane, come and see how we live. Colonial system in this country and there was different.
Okay.
It was very different. This is why the Northern Rhodesian money developed this country much more it developed Zambia. I'm not shy to say that. Because while as the colonialists were in Northern Rhodesia, all they thought of was Bulawayo and Salisbury in Rhodesia. But under Red, Ndola, Lusaka, Broken Hill, and other towns. But most of the money that were made in that country were being brought here to develop this country. Because to them, they thought they were here to stay for good. And knowing that the wind of change will blow, one day the blacks will fight for their right, as we did.
Well, I think you're getting to the interesting topic that I've been waiting to talk about. Can you tell us about your participation in the liberation struggle after the death of your parents? You showed us pictures of you in Berlin. Can you just take us through the journey of your participation in the liberation struggle?
It is so interesting, my girl. As I was going to school in Northern Rhodesia, the Northern Rhodesian teachers were teaching the people about the liberation.
Yes.
Then I asked myself a question. Why am I here with my parents? What brought us here? Then because my father had told me.
Yes.
That mtanami sikuleli lizwe hathi ukuthi siyakuthanda kungenxa womumo welizwe lethu. Umumo welizwe lethu uyasibandlulula.
Yes.
And that made me make sure I might participate in the changeover from the government that was there to the government that is there now.
Yes.
That made me move into the political movement. At school, I do remember being punished one day when I refused to ring a national anthem, which was sung in English. I said, nani nako operasi kuwa nani mutu yomusu. Meaning, mina ngisoze ngihlabele isikhiwa ngumuntu omnyama. Then I was say, oh, you are too political, you are too politic.
Yes.
Because that is going into my mind, that instead of singing in our own language, but we are being taught the national anthem in English.
Yes.
That was in Northern Rhodesia, and I was punished for that. But I meant it. And that had gone into my blood, that I must make sure if one day I would find myself a proper participant in Zimbabwe politics, I'll be very glad.
Yes.
And that was in the early 60s.
Yes.
Early 60s. When the 1959 G started, I was so proud of it. I wish I was in Bulawayo, but unfortunately I was already in Northern Rhodesia.
Okay.
Because as I was listening to the events that was happening, the people had become more brute and more liking of the change. And a wonderful struggle happened that year.
Yes.
Because people wanted the change. They were tired of dictatorship. Yes. And that enticed me, made me, being a young man, to be fully participant in the Zimbabwean politics. I participated very strongly in Zambian politics.
Yes.
Because I was also chosen as the political commissar in Zambia, yes, which I did. I even celebrated the first Zambia's independence on October, or that was October the 18th, what was it? Well, it's one of those, but I have all the record here.
Yes.
I participated 80 miles from Livingstone at a place called Ngweze.
Yes.
It was raining as it was raining, but I participated in Zambia's independence,
yes,
which is there in history. By then, I was the area youth organizing secretary, yet being a schoolboy.
Okay.
But I was the area youth organizing secretary,
yes,
not even of being a national, but of being a Zimbabwean who had interest in the politics. And that groomed me. I repeat, that groomed me to participate 10 times as much to Zimbabwe politics.
Okay.
So that's my political background.
All right.